What's going on, YouTube? It's Biggs. I'm doing something completely different today. Um, I want to cover a new game. It's not out yet, but I do want to give it some spotlight because I think it's actually a really cool game. Um, I'm a longtime fan of Star Wars in general. Massive, massive, massive fan. I've been, in love with all the movies since I was a kid, except the new stuff. I'm not one of those guys. Um, and I've been following the game since I've heard about it. I know the company that did it had another TCG that didn't quite, I don't know if it was a board game TCG type situation, but it didn't go over so well. So they kind of are doing a restart, kind of like how Dragon Ball is going through like a fresh start as well. So they've streamlined some of the mechanics from what I've been hearing. Uh, and it incorporates like a lot of different things from other games to form this really, really cool concept. Um, and I'm going to be using this website called forcetable.net, completely free. Um, it's like another Batsu OPTCG sim kind of situation where it's like completely free to access. It's fully automated, which is really cool. There are a couple hotkeys you can use, but for the most part, like you can play through the game and it's the same thing. Um, and they're updating it as soon as the new cards come out. I believe everything was just recently spoiled over the weekend. They had like a demo event, so you guys can check that out. But um, I'm gonna go over through some topics like on the gameplay as we go through it. You're gonna be able to play against a computer, which is really nice, so there's no pressure. Um, and they have the two starter decks already loaded. And then I'll go over how to play with like the new cards after. So I'm gonna go with Vader because I am definitely an Empire boy. Die Rebel Scum. So that's how you do it. I selected the deck I wanted as player one as me, and then the computer will be player two. And again, you can add more decks. So you can even play with against like some of the top tier decks that are being like mathed out. And then you can choose random, player one, player two start, etc. But I'm gonna click random. I'm gonna start going through some of the. I'm gonna lower the volume on this a little bit. Um, so just like most TCGs that we know, you can mulligan your hand one time, no penalty, but it, again, is just a one-time mulligan. I'm just going to look through some of these cards. Uh, I will take them all. So the Vader strategy is kind of a ramp strategy. So I would like to see a ramp piece if I can. If not, it's okay. But let's talk about that now that we're in the game. So you do get a leader just like One Piece. Your leader will be part of your color identity, as you can see in the right-hand corner of the card, that red symbol, black symbol. It's aggression and villainy, respectively. So that's part of the color identity. What the game does to expand on that is you also get your base, which is your health pool, basically, which also contributes to your color identity. So between those three symbols that we have here, the green one being command, we have red, black, and green, and that's all three colors we can make our deck of. However, there is a workaround. I'll get into that in a little bit when we move over to deck construction. So that is our game plan here. We're going to be red, black, green. Green has a little bit of ramp to it, so familiar from other games if you've seen. Like in Magic, green is usually the ramp color. Though nowadays anything can ramp with treasure tokens and all that. But anyway, and then Luke is Vigilance, which is blue, Heroic, which is that white color, and then Cunning, I believe, or something like that, is the yellow. I'm still pretty new to the game myself, so if I got that wrong, I'm sorry. So those are your three symbols here, making up all six of the color pie. So again, we have red, black, green, blue, white, yellow. And then we'll move into the leader ability and how they work. So for Vader, he gets a once per turn if you played a villainy card this phase. So like the turn system in the game is different from your traditional TCG of your turn, my turn. Phases work where you're both playing on the same turn. So you take an action, I take an action. and then we exhaust that until we move on to the next phase where we get to add more resources to play cards, because you will have to use cards to play cards. I'll get into that in 1 second. As you can see at the bottom here, it says choose 2 cards to resource, and I'll do that momentarily. Um, so like Magic, you will be playing your resources from hand differently. Any card in your hand can be a resource. Um, Kind of like Lorcana, although Lorcana has a specific system where like I think certain cards cannot be used for ink or your resource system. In Star Wars, any card in your hand can be a resource, which is part of the first phase of like your tactical play is, do I get rid of a card that I could potentially play like in the mid game because I can't play it yet to resource? And most times, yeah. In some matchups, it might be worth considering to hold on to like some of your late game potential, just because the game kind of falls into an aggro, mid range, and control style. I haven't seen anything like combo. I don't want to see combo. Combo usually is the fourth pillar of the format, but they usually introduce really unfun parts of the game, and then I won't get into that. But so far, no combo mechanics in this game like that, where like I just get to play my deck and do a bunch of crap on my turn, and you're just sitting there watching. Like I said, we are going back and forth, and that is the second layer. I'm gonna find out. Actually, I think he has it. So this little token right here by his side of the playmat is called the initiative token. So that is how you go first between phases. Um, and that'll let you take the first action for the phase. Uh, so now you're probably asking, well, how do I get it if I don't have it? I'll get into that in a minute. But that is probably one of the defining aspects of the game of when to take initiative and when to pass or play a card, etc., use an effect, attack. Because again, these are all actions that you're trading between each other. So I'm just gonna go to the resource phase. I'm gonna choose 2 cards to resource. Um, Real quick, I'll talk about the card types. So you have your units, and you can see right away I have a unit that has space, and then I have a unit that says ground. Our playmat also has that separation. So the second defining aspect of the game, but because we've seen leader systems and you know play my cards for resources before, like those are all familiar things in the card game space. What Star Wars is doing differently is the initiative system and then the separation of where you're playing the game, basically. So I have my space units, traditional Star Wars guys. So we're playing units into space to do the same thing, basically. You'll be trying to attack base, trade board, etc. And then you have your ground units. There are some overlap where certain things you can do in space will affect the ground, vice versa. Um, but that is a big part of the game. Like maybe I see my opponent is developing a lot of ground units and I don't have a good hand for that. Maybe I could dump that for a little bit until I have like some sort of removal option, and just focus space so that I can keep up on the health race. Um, so that is a big part of the game of like knowing where to deploy, what to push for, when to give up on it, etc. And so that is another aspect of the game which I think is really cool. As you know, I loved One Piece because of the combat system. Nowadays, it's kind of scuffed depending on where you sit on that. But this is another game where it's very much board centric. Events and like, because that we do have events which are literally like the same word in One Piece. They're your spells basically, like how you can interact with board or do combat tricks, etc. Um, so they do exist. They are not instants like in Magic. Again, we are playing on each other's turn. Um, in Runeterra, they had that same system of we're playing the same turn with each other, going back and forth. The difference is there again, there's no instant reaction. Like I can't react to you playing your card. At least not right now. I don't know if that's something in the future. We'll get a different kind of event type. But for the moment, I play an event as a sorcery speed or a slow speed, um, and then it resolves entirely, and then you go. Again, there's no counter spells or anything like that in this game. There are cards that kind of feel that way, like you played a card. Well, now I play my card to answer your card. So like that is the trade there. Um, so again, I'm just gonna move into our resource phase. I've been talking for a bit, just so I can show you the automation. I'll do these two, and you can hit D for done, and those two cards in my hand get resourced. So the beginning of the game starts off, we draw our 6 cards and we choose 2 cards to resource. So the game wants you to start playing pretty quickly, help you get to that mid to late game pretty fast. Because that's another thing that, happens in Magic and other resource-based systems. Like, oh, I can't play my cards because I don't have the resources for it. So um, Star Wars starts off on 2 and then ramps by 1 every phase after the fact. Um, The trade-off for having to deploy 2 resources and then continually play a resource from hand, if you choose to, that's another thing. You can choose to not deploy resources for the turn. So after you're an aggro deck, typically your curve is 3, 4, 5 maybe, and then I can stop. I don't have to go further than that because all my cards are pretty cheap and I don't really want to get rid of my gas in hand to have more resources sometime, depending on the build, etc. So that is another aspect of the game. Like you don't have to go that deep into your hand. And then again, the trade-off is you're drawing 2 cards a turn. So that way, every time you resource, you're still drawing a card technically. And then playing to that same tactical play of, man, should I resource this card now? Do I wait and keep it in my hand to play later, etc. So um, that is our first play, is just choosing our 2 cards to resource, and then now I will decide what I want to deploy. He has a C3PO. They are on attack and win plate effects, just like most games. And he gets to look at the top, and you may reveal it and draw it. If it's the chosen, oh, you choose a number, and then if it's the chosen number, you get to draw it. So he chose 2. Yeah, he chose number 2 and then got to draw a card. This is the card he drew. Um, Very powerful card, honestly. Definitely a big hitter in the next set, in the first set. But um, now I'll get to choose what I want to do. And I'm going to hit C to play my card. Well, let's hit cancel just so I can show you some of the things you can do. So you can play a card. You can attack if I had any units to attack with. And then I have an ability button. My leader has an ability. Certain cards you see will have abilities that I can activate on my turn. Take initiative and pass. So take initiative, I'll go through that one real quick because that's important. Is a pass, so I can choose the initiative and then pass. I don't get to take any more actions for the turn, which is not the same as a regular pass. If I were to just hit pass, my opponent would have to agree to pass as well to move on to the next phase. However, if I take initiative, now I get to take that initiative icon, which is huge. It's a very powerful thing to do, but that means I don't get to do anything else for the rest of my turn, my actions. I won't say turn, my actions. But because I did that, my opponent now has free reign to do any number of attacks that he has available, any abilities that he still has, any extra cards that he can still play from hand. So knowing when to take initiative is very important because it is a dead stop to your play until the next phase. The trade-off is, again, I get to make the first action for the turn, but that is a big trade-off, especially as we get deeper into a game. Maybe I don't want to attack with something or an activated ability because taking the initiative for that next turn is going to be very important. Like say I get the first attack. I can do an ability, play an event card that can remove something from the board, um, rather than let my opponent keep the initiative and have him get to use his cards that extra little bit before I have a chance to respond. So again, this is one of the defining mechanics of the game, in my opinion, as well as the separation of board. All right, I've been talking for a bit. Let's play some cards. I'm going to choose the TIE Fighter to develop in space. And then as you see, they come in sideways. That means I cannot attack with them. There are cards similar to, things in other games, Rush, Haste, etc., that will let you be able to attack the turn you play them. But I believe The keyword only lets you attack other units, um, which is fair. If we had just a bunch of rush units, I think aggro would probably be too good. um, and then I get to activate an ability. So as you can see, he took initiative. So let's say he had other abilities to activate, he can no longer do them, which he doesn't. So it's a fair play to just take the initiative. I, however, am going to use our Darth Vader ability. As you can see, I played a villainy black unit. So now I can activate my ability for my Vader, which is rest him and a resource, which I have one open. And I can deal one to a unit and a base. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to choose his 3PO and his base to deal the extra 1 damage. Vader has some cool interplay where you can ping your own stuff. Certain cards you have trigger effects when they die. And if your opponent chooses to ignore them, it can be kind of annoying. However, Vader kind of circumvents that by saying, well, I can just ping my guy, kill him, and then activate whatever I want to activate. But now that I have no more actions for turn, I'm going to hit P for pass, and we're going to start the next phase or turn. Okay, so I have 2 pretty big units, and I don't think we need both. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the space unit just because he doesn't have any presence in space yet. And again, I can't play this for a little while. So I click the card I want to resource, press done. Okay. Opponent gets to go first because he took initiative last turn. So now he gets to choose. All right, the computer's clearly cheating. He chose 1, and of course the top card was a was a 1 cost. It's a cute little combo between 3PO and R2. R2 on play and attack, look at the top card of your deck, and you may choose to put it on the top or bottom. So what R2 lets you do with 3PO is I get to peek, and then 3PO, now I have all the information where it's like, oh, I know what number to choose so that you can pretty much draw a card indefinitely until you deal with them. Let's see. So I can get into some of the keywords here now. So I'm going to play a card just to have some action here. We're going to play our Cell Block Guard. Okay. So differently than in uh, Magic and games like it, similar to One Piece, we have a keyword that says you cannot attack other units in this arena. So again, ground versus space. So in the ground arena, our ground units, he can no longer attack my base or other units. He has to attack here. So it's kind of like blocker or taunt from Hearthstone in a way. Your opponent has to choose this. If I had 2 Sentinel units, then they can choose which Sentinel they want to attack. So that is the trade-off there. Do I have any other play here? I'm just going to take the initiative. I don't really want to attack with our guy. So he's going to deploy the R2 and get that peek again. So now I've taken initiative, and now I get to start the turn. I'm going to just get rid of this 1-drop in hand because we are going to be playing a little later. And I'm going to show you how rush effects work in this game, or cards that do similar rush style effects. So we're going to go, because I want to get rid of his draw engine here. I'm going to play a card, and I'm going to play this Stormtrooper Lieutenant. And it says you may attack with an Imperial unit, and if it's, I'm sorry, with a unit, and if it's Imperial, it gets +2/+0. So now I can start attacking right away. Normally, to attack is an action all its own, but now I can play a card and have something attack in the same turn. So that is one style of rush or haste, whatever you want to call it. Charge. We're going to attack with a unit, yes. We're going to choose our cell block guard, and we're going to kill this 3PO because it's just generating him too much value. And also before he can activate his Luke or anything like that. So it's just for the attack, so you know. There are some who will say +2 or whatever for the phase, in which case I get to keep that buff. But just for this attack, I got that +2/+0. So he wants to kill the cell block guard, get it off the board. He triggers the R2 attack on attack, so good value for him. Now, he has a pretty good space unit. that'll just eat up our TIE fighter, and he'll also be able to restore, which is another keyword. So we'll go into that. Restore one is a heal. So we'll be able to heal one from his base, which is pretty good for these control-y style decks. Not that Luke falls into that necessarily, but just overall, being able to heal up damage is a way to circumvent your bad matchups into aggro, because that is kind of the triangle of the game. Uh, Aggro will beat control because control will be too slow. Control will beat mid-range because mid-range tries to do that in between of I'm, aggressive, but I also have some late game play that'll help me deal with aggro. Like I'm fast enough to get to the board to not just outright lose to you, and then some of my big cards are just too big for you to handle that come out in that mid point of the game, not so much the late game, but the midpoint. And then control beats the mid range because they just go that much further in, and you're not quite as fast. So that is kind of our little triangle of metagame play. Different leaders fall into different categories. Different leaders can be played very differently. Luke, in my opinion, kind of has a more aggressive feel to it, but you can also play him more mid-rangey control-y just because of what his ability does, and I'll just get into that real quick. As we move later into the game, I'll get into that little yellow text box that I haven't talked about yet. But shields are something that blue does a lot. Shield tokens literally read nullify all damage done for one attack or one instance of damage. Doesn't matter if it's an infinity or one, the shield will absorb it and then it'll disappear. It'll fall off. But it is, again, just for that one instance. So having different ways to answer a shield is pretty good. Or there are some things that just let you ignore shields entirely, like I'll just bounce it back to your hand, or outright destroy. There are kill spells in this game, kind of like Magic, um, or rest effects in One Piece, where you get to tap something down and then it gets locked down. So there are some ways to ignore it, but it is still a very powerful keyword. Obviously, again, you can just ignore infinity damage for that one time. But that is something that he does, but it's only on a unit that he played that turn. So it's not something he can do indefinitely throughout a game, just, hand it out to anything that's been sitting on the board. Um, let's see. I'm going to activate our Darth Vader ability. I'm going to ping this droid because he's at 3 damage done, and 1 to the base. Something to know, well, as I showed you, he bounced our card. Um, Something to note also is, unlike Magic and a lot of different games, damage does not fall off in this game. Damage stays. Damage is counters on your cards. So if he had not done anything, that little cell block guard would have still had the 2 damage I think it had in him. Yeah, 2 damage on him indefinitely. So if he had like a ping effect of his own later in the game and just went 1 damage to him, he would have died. So that is something important to know about this game as well. Damage does not fall off, it stays, persists. So now, again, he has an attack. He can clear my TIE Fighter. I can cash in 2 damage, or I can take the initiative, but I think even a player, he would probably do this attack anyway. So I'm going to attack, get the value of my card, deal the 2 damage to base, and let him deal with my TIE Fighter, and then I'll grab initiative. Just because, again, I have nothing else to play this turn. So now I can take the initiative, and he has no more actions, presumably. Okay. I'm going to get rid of the probe droid. I'm going to start off with an attack, get the value off of my guy. And then I'm going to show you that card I was talking about. So he gets right for Surprise Strike. So again, it's another one of those cards that lets you attack immediately. And in this case, it does 3+3/+0 for the attack. So he does a big chunk of base damage to me for that turn and gets to restore 1 more damage. So now I'm going to play our card. We're going to play the Super Laser Technician. And as I said, some cards in the Darth Vader deck are in Imperial in general benefit from just them dying. And since he has nothing for me to like use this to attack into yet, I'm just going to use our Darth Vader ability. I'm going to deal one to our own guy. I still get to ping his base, but when he dies, I get to play him as a resource. So yes, I do want that as my resource, and then one damage to base. So I'm very close to showing you one of the defining mechanics for the leaders. I have nothing else to play except this lightsaber, but I kind of want to hold it. So again, I'm going to just take the initiative. He's going to shield his Leia that he just played for the turn. Okay. I'm going to resource the laser tech because I don't need it anymore. And now I'm at 7 resources. So now I can finally show it off. So, leaders are not just little abilities that you get interchangeably throughout the turn. They also have an epic action. So once per game, if I control the right amount of resources, which in Darth Vader's case is 7, I can deploy him as a unit on the ground unit, or in the ground arena, sorry. So since I'm at 7, I can do that right away. So I'm going to hit ability and epic action deploy. And each leader has their own set of stats and abilities on the unit side. So now my Darth Vader, every time he attacks, deals 2 to a unit. And he's got a pretty sizable body at 5'8". So it's going to be a little while before he gets taken down. Some things to note, things like this, a lot of removal is locked to non-leader units, unless it's damage-based removal. So you cannot just, oh, deploy my leader and then you pay 3 mana or resources to bounce it or get rid of it. So leaders are kind of sticky and kind of annoying to deal with if you're not already properly set up on board, especially in this little starter deck format. So my Vader's looking pretty solid. And now I'm also going to play this card, uh, Vader's Lightsaber. They kind of work like enchantments in Magic, where they will attach to a unit and fall off when the unit dies or leaves play. But because Darth Vader specifically has an ability with this, so if an attached unit is Vader, you may deal 4 to a ground unit, just outright on play. So we're going to do that. We're going to attach to Vader. I'm going to deal the damage to Leia to get rid of her shield. Okay. So now he trades, which is a good trade for him. He gets the value off the Leia before my Vader just kills it outright. Um, Speaking of outright, hold on. We're going to attack, and I'm just going to kill this giant body of his. I'm going to deal. Oh, I should have dealt it here. Oh, I was clicking too fast, but I could have. This is one of those instances where effects can go across arenas. I could have dealt 2 damage to get rid of this spaceship that had 2 damage already, and it killed it. He deploys another Leia. I'm just going to deploy our Cellblock Guard again, which is our like blocker taunter for the turn. And then I'm going to take initiative since he chose to give Leia a shield. And he deploys his Luke Skywalker. And again, on attack for him, he gets to give his shield out to something, which is pretty powerful. So now this is going to be kind of annoying to deal with. The good thing is our Vader is kind of set up already to answer this. And again, we're kind of late in the game where the 1-drop is very inefficient. So I'm just going to keep resourcing those pretty low to the ground do nothing cards. As I said before, we have cards that can answer leaders, but are typically damage locked. So since he's already had 3 and he only has 7 health, that's an easy way to get rid of that. And he returns rested, which is important to know. So now he is no longer able to use his other side of the card ability, the turn that they die. Okay, so now I have 5 resources. We have a giant body, but I'm not going to be able to do anything with that yet. So let's just attack. I keep hitting the wrong key. Attack. We're gonna go here. I'm just gonna cash in 8 damage. We're gonna deal 2 damage to get rid of the shield, and then I can clear it next turn. All right, so he's going full base, which is kind of scary. We'll play Veers. Veers is kind of like we call them anthem effects in Magic, where he will pump other Imperials by +1/+1. So a very strong static ability. All right, what do I want to resource? I kind of want to just ignore this side of the board since I'm not getting any value. I might put something out to kind of like, I'm going to get rid of this just because he also gets advantage from that. First event played each turn, loses all abilities. It's a very powerful thing to have on a ship. But again, he just has so many mini attackers that this is kind of just going to sit there and not really do too much. So I'm going to use our Vader ability. We're going to play a card. I'm going to play the TIE Advanced to put 2 counters here. So these are +1/+1 counters for Magic. Literally, that's all they are. Experience are just +1/+1 counters. It's just another way to say it. We're going to attack with Vader. So he played his own Sentinel, so now I have to attack into this, but now I can clear at least one of these. And then answer this outright. So our Vader has taken quite a bit of damage, but he's going to keep ignoring. We're going to attack with Veers. We're kind of racing here. And then again, this is another one of our examples where cross arena abilities. So our Veers will pump our ship that's over here. I'm going to take initiative. He's going to attack one more time. Presumably give out a shield token. No, actually, there's nothing to shield. Just because I answered that big body right away. That's another good ship. Honestly, I'm just going to get rid of this one because it doesn't really do much for us. So we are kind of racing. We're going to attack like this. We're going to attack for a nice, big, juicy amount, just literally half of his life for that remaining. So we're going to attack 9 into 18. He surprise strikes us. Ouch. But I'm pretty safe from damage on board. He can leave me at 1 life, which is scary, but we're we're looking okay. So I'm going to go play a card. I'm going to play this, which deals 3 damage to a space unit to get rid of his attacker here, which also prevents him from healing. He gets to go 2 damage into base. I still have more plays, so I'm going to go Vader Saber on Vader again to just clear this ship and deal. Oh, actually, it's only here, right? Oh, that sucks. That. So that's another thing I forgot. Again, still learning with you guys as we go through the video. So there's a little star symbol that you see right next to Vader's lightsaber. That is the legend rule from Magic. You can only have one of a specific unique card, that's what they're called, of the same name in play. There are different Darth Vaders that will exist, presumably going forward, but it's okay. They can be played on the same as like your leader Vader, so long again they don't share the same exact name. So in Darth Vader's case, it's not just Darth Vader; it's Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. Um, if we ever got like a copy effect or something like that, then we'd probably run into that rule. But for the most part, you can have different, you know, epic leaders and stuff like that, and play them alongside your actual unit cards, and it won't be an issue. Again, so long as they don't have the same name. So in that instance, me playing 2 Vader Sabers, I have to choose one to keep and one to get rid of, but I still get the on-play effect, so I was able to deal the 4 damage, even though in this instance, all I did was get rid of shield. Because I didn't read the whole thing, it says to ground units only. So now we're going to attack. We're going to go 5 into there, and then we're gonna pass. Do I have any other attacks? I do have an attack, actually. Whew, I would have lost the game. If I would have passed since he took initiative, he just gets to attack on his first action, and then I would have lost. Um, but before that, I'll be able to talk about this real quick. Ambush. After you play this, you may ready it and attack an enemy unit the same turn. So this is our rush effect, our actual dedicated rush ability. Um, but again, it's locked to units. I can only attack a unit. I cannot attack the base. Um, and obviously, I can only attack the units within my arena unless it says otherwise. But now I can just attack his base for the 4 since I got the Veers buff, and that is game. So that is an entire game being played out. I got to go over some of the cards. And then real quick, I'll go over one other website. So this is the Star Wars Unlimited Database.com. You can look at different decks that people have been building and playing over the couple months of spoilers. They've even been doing some tournaments on the tabletop sim, and this is one of the winners from one of their most recent leagues, Boba Fett Green. Your bases can have abilities on them, epic actions, at the cost of some amount of health points. I'm assuming the more powerful they are going forward, the maybe the less health you'll get. It's really interesting design space, which I like about the game. Some off-topic things from the gameplay for competitive players. You'll be happy to know this is a best 2 out of 3 when we're playing competitively. At store events for bigger tournaments, it is a 2 out of 3 game, which also means that you also get sideboard. I don't know if I can see it here. Unfortunately, no. Um, there are 10 card sideboards, so altogether your deck is 60 cards, 50 main deck, 10 sideboard, and then 61 with the leader. Well, 61, 62 with the base and the leader. But your main deck is 50, your sideboard is 10, and in between your best 2 out of 3, you'll be able to sideboard any cards you want for specific matchups, which is really nice. But a cool thing again, if you don't have tabletop sim or are too afraid to play against other players, you can also just copy it to Force Table. It'll open a new instance, but now I have that deck that was played, and I can play with the deck against, again, the computer. I can also have the computer play as this deck and practice, some of the mirror match stuff. Although, to be fair, the computer isn't the smartest player. You can definitely take advantage of it, but it is a fun way to learn the game. I like it a lot. It's been really fun for me to play around with this and get a little better at like understanding the mechanics of the game. So this was kind of a long one. I do want to preface this again. I'm not giving up on One Piece content. I just wanted to cover this because I thought it was a really, really fun game. Um, I don't think it's getting enough of the hype that it deserves. I understand that the company that made the previous game kind of tanked. The game didn't really take off. But this is a much more streamlined version from what I'm being told. Playing it myself seems hella fun. I don't know if I'll be able to play it in New York per se, just because there's not a lot of events going on by me. But if they are by you, I would definitely check them out. They're doing demo events, pre-release for the game. I think is the first week of March. So again, you can just pick up some product for a really nice price. I think it's between 20 and 30 or something like that. Um, and just try the game yourself. You'll be able to get 6 packs, build a deck, and just play with people and learn. The demo events were for this weekend. I don't know if they're doing more of them going forward, but they're free events. You can just show up at your local game store if they're running it. And again, just learn how to play using these starter deck leaders and just try it out. But I like the game a lot. I'm probably going to try and dip my toes into this alongside One Piece content. If you guys want to see more on the channel, definitely let me know. Um, I know this is a weird way to come back from nationals with no new video in so long, but um, it's just been really busy for me. And again, this is a shiny new toy for me, and I just want to try it out. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've stayed this long through the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.